Hi, this is Bill Windsor. I am in Chaska, Minnesota with three of the finest mothers in America. These ladies have been deprived of every imaginable form of constitutional right and the rights to their children. And we need to tell everybody in America who doesn't have a clue that things like this go on that it's real, and these are people just like you and me that it happens to. We have a worse than a crisis in our country with the family courts. We have judges that do whatever they want. They ignore the facts, they ignore the law, and it seems that there must be a financial incentive to them for doing the things they do, because there's no other explanation for why these ladies, these wonderful mothers, and tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of others like them all over the country, would have their rights to see their children taken away from them, given to husbands who are abusive, who have criminal records, who in many cases around the country commit sexual abuse. And yet the judges award the children and sole custody in many cases to the abuser. And then, to make matters worse, they take away all rights from the mothers. The only explanation I can come up with is that these people are paid to do this. Perhaps it's because they have a relationship with an attorney who represents the bad guy or the bad girl, because it's not always the men who are bad. There's plenty of cases where it's women as well. We just happen to be here with three wonderful moms. It doesn't really matter why they do what they do. The fact is they do it, and that's the problem. It doesn't matter if they're bribed. It doesn't matter if they have a relationship with an attorney. It doesn't matter if they're prejudiced against women or prejudiced against whites or blacks or browns or reds or greens. The fact is that they do it. Our challenge with the movie Lawless America is to try to educate people to realize that we have this problem. So I'm going to ask each of the ladies to introduce themselves and speak to you, assuming you're somebody who doesn't know that this problem exists, to try to tell you something that might make you understand. So we'll start with Leah.
My name is Leah Bankin. I am from Carver County, and I have been going through a family court case for about 3 years now. I have three beautiful children, ages 2, 6, and 8. And when the divorce started, I was actually pregnant with my husband and my third child, and he filed for divorce. And my ex and I were very well off. I was in real estate. My ex owns a few companies, and we lived in a beautiful home, had a boat, a house, companies, the whole 9 yards. My ex controlled all the assets during the marriage, and I was completely cut off after the divorce was filed. The judge here actually took my 11-week-old baby and my 2 kids and gave them to my ex-husband, who has domestic assault, disorderly conduct, theft, DUI on his record. There's affidavits from women that he's sexually and physically abused as well, not just myself. And the children have cried out about abuse. During trial, my witnesses were not allowed to be heard. They never took the stand. Witnesses to severe child abuse, because I'm not the only one that knows about it. And after I lost the baby at 11 weeks old, I was allowed one overnight every 2 weeks with my newborn infant, and a very limited visitation with my children. And I started a blog called carvercountycorruption.com, which includes court orders, police reports, and everything that you need to show the proof of what's going on here. They ordered me to take it down and stopped all visitation with my children. And I have not seen my kids or had any contact with them now in over a year. And my ex actually got all the assets from the marriage, and I've been left $20,000 in debt apparently to him. And I owe him child support, which he's tried to jail me for. And the list goes on and on and on. But our court systems are extremely scary, which I never knew before this. You could have never even convinced me that I would lose my baby and kids, and I did. So,
Leah, do you have any explanation for how this could happen? What is there any possible basis upon which you should be deprived the rights to be with your children?
No, there's no, not even alleged harm to my kids by me, ever. Emotional, physical, nothing. I have no criminal record. I've got like 2 speeding tickets from years ago, and no mental health history, nothing. No, not even, literally nothing. They just were taken. And my ex is a multimillionaire, and they're favoring him, and unless the judge just thinks my ex is cute, I mean, there's money involved. So.
Is the judge a woman?
No, Judge Richard Perkins, who has actually a history. We found a lot of mothers that he's done this to.
Yeah, there seems to be a pattern with judges. Either they do it to women or they do it to men. If is anybody out there watching that doesn't think this can happen to you, Leah is about as good an example as you're going to find of just a wholesome, all-American blonde girl
That likes the speed.
who occasionally drives a little fast, but seriously, a wonderful, wonderful person, and it could happen to you. And here's Bonnie Roy, and she'll tell you why she thinks you need to sit up and pay attention.
I would just say that when my husband filed for divorce in 2007, I just felt that if I was forced to come into a court system, that I just thought just so that me and my children can survive, I'd have to be okay with it. I remember walking in those doors thinking that this was going to be fair, and it was by far the most injustice thing that I've ever witnessed in my life. How Judge Canning spoke to me, how even when I was dealing with cancer and 20-some surgeries and just physically battling my own physical condition, had been also awarded the Social Security disability approval, and he basically ignored that. Even like the child support, it's so sporadic. I basically tried to plea and just say, at least can I get it in the very beginning of the month, because I can't survive on this. I was homeless, without a car, I had to go, unfortunately, to the social services and apply for food assistance. And right now, me and my children live on $123 for food support, which feeds 3 people. So yes, I never would have thought that this could have happened in a courtroom, never. And even watching different cases in Carver County, watching several cases or a few cases yesterday, and just watching how some of these men came up after being brought forward in the justice system and were accused of abuse, and yet the judge said, "Is your wife working?" And it was Judge Canning. And when you look at what is the main objective, they are protecting the abuser, and I find it appalling. And same in Leah's case. I've walked in the courtroom many times with her, and I just stand back and I'm like, unless you witness this, it is really an unbelievable story. All of us are. Most people would not believe this.
And it's not just here in Carver County, Minnesota. It's all over the country. The camera operator behind the camera today is from Maryland, and she's a victim of family court corruption. I'm going to be interviewing a total of over 1,200 people in all 50 states, and over half of them are victims of family court corruption. If I could stay in Minnesota for the next month, I could probably find 10 or 12 people every day if they had the guts to come and tell their story. It happens to just about everybody. I've asked people as they've walked in the courthouses, are you a victim of judicial corruption? And most of them acknowledge they are. Those who don't, I tell them that whether you know it or not, you are. We're all victims. If we ever have to hire an attorney, we're a victim. And that's one of the things that these judges do in the family court situation. It's the reason the person with money wins, is because they bleed you absolutely dry of every penny you have and money you don't even have. Last but not least, we have Ann Jeske, better known to her closest friends as Annie. So here's Annie.
Thank you, Billy. Well, I will just take on what Bill said about being bleeded dry financially. Not only do people want to bleed you financially, but they want to see you break down, to lose yourself, to no longer fight. And as a mother with these 3 mothers, we will always fight for our children. I've had sole physical custody of 2 beautiful children who are now 14 and 16. And I've lost my son 2 years ago through what is called parental alienation. And guardian ad litems and therapists actually believe that I was abusive. To a boy I've raised for 14 years who wanted nothing more than to see his mother dead after spending 2 years with his father. He puppeted his father's words. And Judge Barkey Kane has allowed it to continue. And the experts have allowed it to continue. So if you think it's not going to happen to you, it may happen even after 14 years of having sole physical custody of your children. So I ask you to take a deep breath. Don't be afraid to tell your story, because if you don't speak, they'll keep taking.
some people are not familiar with all the names and everything, but in different states it's called different things. Child Protective Services, that is a joke. There's no protection involved in the family courts or in these organizations that are government entities called Child Protective Services. They destroy families. They destroy children. Nobody cares about the children, or they wouldn't do the things that they're doing. I mean, I think that it seems that we have gotten into a situation in America where the judges are heartless. And I have a standing invitation to any honest judge in America to come out and talk to me. I'm in 25 more states over the next 100 days, but if there's a judge that says they're honest, I'll come anywhere in America that you are, and I'll sit down and have a conversation with you. I think all the judges are dishonest, if not corrupt, because if there's an honest judge in this building, they would report those that are committing crimes that are their fellow judges, but they don't do it. These people destroy lives. We've had the ladies talk about guardian ad litems. These are people who get appointed, theoretically, to be operating in the best interests of the child. Nobody operates in the best interests of the child from what I can see. These guardian ad litems are people that don't have much training. They're not licensed. They may not even have college degrees. Hopefully they at least have high school degrees.
Background checks.
They don't do criminal background checks, not a thing. And yet they make decisions that deal with a mother's right to ever be with their child ever again. They wipe grandparents out of rights, and they do it, who knows why they do what they do. They either like one side or another, or they get paid, or the judges tell them what to do. We think it's very often money. But these people have no business making decisions like this. So we're not here just to talk about problems. We'd also like to talk about solutions. We probably need to replace every judge in America overnight. Now, that's not too practical.
No.
But we need to get it to where judges are elected in Minnesota, where they currently, a significant number of them are appointed. We need to get it where we can elect them so we at least have the option of trying to vote them out. And I would encourage the legislatures all over the country to put a none of the above on the ballot, because all too often the judges run unopposed. Let's at least give people the opportunity to express that they don't want to vote for the person they're presented with. The reason judges run unopposed is you have to be an attorney in order to be a judge. Well, I think there's a good reason right there to make that change. I don't think judges should be attorneys, because they automatically have a prejudice to the people in the courtroom who are attorneys. And these ladies who can't afford attorneys are representing themselves, and they're automatically at a significant disadvantage. So I would encourage state legislators across the country to consider eliminating the requirement that you have to be an attorney. I know I would make a really good judge. I'm an honest person, and I would do what's right, and I would pay attention to the truth. And I believe there are other people like me out there who aren't attorneys who would do an equally good job. Let's give those people a shot. You have a built-in prejudice in the system that we have today. The decisions that only God should make are given to these guardian ad litems and people who make evaluations about the husband and wife in a divorce, in a custody situation. These people act like God. I like to say they're committing the unauthorized practice of God. Nobody should have that right. A simple protection that could be provided in every state is to have every family court decision made by a jury. A jury of these ladies' peers would never, in a bazillion years, take away their rights to their children. We need juries. That way we eliminate or greatly minimize the chance that somebody's going to be prejudiced and have a bias. At least we've got 12 people. They're all going to have some biases, but let's hope that the luck of the draw is that we get some in there that have a level head and do the right thing. And I think that we would all accept if we had decisions made by 12 people. As long as we don't have judges denying the right for the people to put the evidence in that establishes what should be considered, which is a problem as well. It's about money in many cases. In some states, I've heard that they flip custody. These ladies wish they would flip custody. In Illinois, they flip custody because the state gets paid more money from the federal government every time there's a custody change. States love to take children away from either parent. We don't have the situation with the lady standing next to me, but in many cases, they take the children away, put them in foster care, and adopt them out. One of the worst cases I've heard is of a young lady who stopped her car next to a curb to apply for a job, to take her resume up to the door to a friend of hers who was accepting it. When she returned to her car, she didn't even turn the car off, left the motor running. The policeman was there and gave her a ticket for parking in a fire lane. When he checked her driver's license, she had a suspended driver's license because she'd been unable to pay a ticket. They arrested her, took her to jail. She was 7 months pregnant. She spent 3 years in a maximum security prison next to murderers, next to a woman who was executed while she was there. This all took place in Stafford County, Virginia. She gave birth to her child with 2 legs and 1 arm strapped to a hospital gurney in the prison. They took away her child. She was never given an opportunity to see it, and they adopted her out. She had another child they took away and adopted out. So this young woman, who looks like Jordan Sparks, beautiful young woman, for parking in a fire lane, spent 3 years in a maximum security prison, lost both of her children, and her life's been destroyed. It makes no sense. I mean, it's the craziest thing you've ever heard, but there's an explanation for it. In that particular case, her mother and grandmother were trying to expose corruption in the police department that was targeting young blacks and Hispanics. And when they saw this woman come to the jail and saw her last name, they said, boy, we're going to get him now. And they did. Where was there a judge in the family court system to step up and say this can't happen? Instead, some judge went along with it, undoubtedly for the reason of protecting the police department and the prosecutors and the others who were involved in the corrupt activity there. The corruption is widespread. You will hear horror stories on lawlessamerica.com of husbands who have cut their children. I won't even go into the details, but it's beyond belief. We had one husband who actually killed his wife. She was brought back to life by the paramedics. And a judge in Grand Rapids, Michigan, has given custody to the man who killed her, has stripped her of all parental rights, and has sent her to jail 6 different times because she's an invalid and is unable to pay the outrageous $1,300 a month he ordered in child support. She can't work. She has no income. Horror story after horror story. But you know what? Most of the stories are never heard because people don't come out like these ladies do and talk. They're afraid. They're still in the system. People are in the system forever. We have one man. He was married for 5 months. He's now been in divorce court for 12 years. 12 years. They're bleeding him absolutely dry. So in that case, it was the woman that had a relationship with an attorney. I tell everybody, if you have to go to court, you find the biggest law firm in town and you go and meet with them. You get the most expensive attorney in the place, and before you hire him or her, ask whether he has a special relationship with a judge that will enable you to win. It's the most important question you can ask. Why dance around about it? Let's find out if you've got the fix in with a judge. There are people who donate. Here in Minnesota, it is utterly ridiculous. Judges are allowed to receive $150 a day. Isn't that it? Unlimited. And nobody knows about it. You don't think that judges get paid in Minnesota? You got to be kidding yourself.
They call it gifts, gratuities.
Gratuities,
Right.
Yeah. Well, I'd like a couple of gratuities. So anybody wants to pay me $150 a day, I'm here and available. You can find out where I am on lawlessamerica.com. But, you know, in ending and talking about the family court situation, I'll see if any of the ladies wants to add anything else in. It is a crisis. It's a pandemic. Not an epidemic. It's worse. It's a pandemic. It's all over our country. And if you don't think it could happen to you or your family, you're absolutely kidding yourself. I ask you to sit there and think, if you're a parent, how you would respond if your children were taken away and you know there's absolutely no basis for it. If you become homeless, if you're stripped of all of your assets, even though you were married and had joint assets. how you would feel if you're not ever allowed to be with your children, or if you're forced into paying to have supervised visits in a clinical situation with somebody watching and writing down everything that happens. It could happen to you. I'm a grandpa. Probably the most important thing in the world to me is those 2 little granddaughters that I have. And if somebody were to strip my rights to see my grandchildren, to send them a letter, to call them, to send them a card, to buy them a gift, I would be worse than devastated. And there are grandmothers all over America that happens to. So if you have children and they have children, or you think they'll ultimately have children, this could happen to you. It may be as simple as one or the other of the husband and wife slapping each other. Somebody calls the police. Next thing you know, maybe the person who slapped is in jail. Maybe it's the person who called. Very often it seems to be the person that raises the complaint rather than the abuser. And then they take your children away and they strip you of your grandparents' rights. I mean, folks, this happens every day to normal people just like you. We have got to stop it. When I grew up in the 50s, we didn't have child protective services. We didn't have it in the 60s. It really kind of came about in the 70s. We got along fine back then. You know, we've got criminal courts. If something happens, let's let it go there. There probably needs to be some type of group to take care of children, and there are certainly situations involving abuse where there needs to be something. But this is like a police state with people who have power that have no business having the power. And folks, it could happen to you. Over 600 people are coming forward to be part of this movie. And if you don't cry your eyes out when you hear little snippets of their story, then maybe you need to take a deep look at yourself. I think you will cry your eyes out. I think even the biggest and strongest of men will cry when they hear these stories. So our prayer is that the people across America will somehow get word about this movie. We'll see the videos on lawlessamerica.com and our YouTube channel, which is Lawless America. And they will be so touched that they'll step up and do something. You know, we have a problem in America of apathy. You know, unless we're personally involved, not many of us do anything. And we're all personally involved. I'm not involved in the family court, but I am now because I've got 1,200 new families across America, over half of whom are involved in the family court situation. So I take it just as personally as they do. So we need everybody to open their eyes and wake up and tell everybody about this movie. If you're on Facebook, tell all your friends, tell your enemies, send an email to everybody in your personal email list. Tell them to go and look into this, because we've also got stories about financial fraud, foreclosure frauds, just judges that strip people of all their assets in civil court, wrongful convictions, elder abuse and guardianship abuse. There's all types of corruptions. The basic problem is dishonesty. We have dishonest people involved in our legal system, and it is affecting hundreds of millions of Americans. You don't have the rights. You may not realize it, but we no longer really have our constitutional rights. So, Leah, any last words?
No, just check out the movie, and if you're a victim, definitely speak out. It's empowering, and you'll just be amazed at what kind of a response you will get from people.
Bonnie?
I would just say that, none of us here today really wanted to be in this position to speak out because we were all so afraid. When you walk into a courtroom, you're put in a position where you want to just hope and pray that it's going to be fair. And I just really pray that in our heart that truth is going to be known and that this corruption stops, because families are being ripped apart and it's wrong. And I just feel that with the strength of God, we've been able to keep standing and walking through this, getting the word out, because I didn't think it was going to be unfair. I didn't think that my life was going to be such in devastation on top of the medical stuff I was dealing with, but it is, and I'm living it. And I also know that I have to be an example to my daughter and to my son that you don't let things like this happen and you do stand up for what's right.
Exactly. For our children, we do this. It would have been really easy to curl up and just play dead when we lost our kids, but we fight for them. So we're hoping you too will fight and you'll join in with Lawless America. Thank you.
In closing, I think one of the problems we have is that people, when they hear that one or the other parents had their children taken away from them, just instantly figure, oh, well, gosh, I wonder what she did, or I wonder what he did.
Right.
You need to realize that more than likely, the person that had the children taken away from was a victim of corruption in the courts, corruption with the prosecutor, corruption with the children and family services, the child protective services, corruption or incompetence or influence, bias. It doesn't matter why they do it. The fact is that they do it. I'm sure there's a lot of things about the family court situation that's sitting here without any script, just impromptu, getting up here to be with these sweet ladies and talking I've forgotten to say. It is a mess. It is a horrible, horrible situation that it is incomprehensible to me how it could have been allowed to go on for as long as it has. I've talked to people from other countries. This would never happen in former communist countries. It just wouldn't happen. But here in America it happens because these people are not accountable to anybody. Well, there's one place where they are accountable, folks, and that's at the ballot box. I like to call all of us who are in the movie nobodies. We're nobodies. We don't have any power. But we're the 99%, and at the ballot box we do have our voice. We have to get enough people in America to realize this is going on so that we exert our force at the ballot box, and we get changes made, and we get people in that we can trust, who are honest, and we get legislation changed to keep these kinds of things from happening. We have submitted 48 proposed pieces of legislation to the Minnesota legislature, just as we do on every stop. If even a few of these are implemented, it will make the situation infinitely better for everybody. We need to get a lot of people informed about what's going on, because there's no way to get the votes and to make have the influence on these legislators unless we do. So this is Bill Windsor, or as I'm known to some of my close friends,
Billy,
standing in front of the Carver County Injustice Center. Thanks for watching, and see the movie, lawlessamerica.com.